Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph, and I am a member of Hashimoto's Awareness, and I'll be chairing this conference call this evening. I'd like to introduce Fabienne Heymans of Hashimoto's Awareness.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the monthly conference call. And tonight we have a very special guest we're going to introduce to you. It's a very special guest and a dear friend of HA, Stacey Robbins. And if you haven't heard from Stacey, let me introduce and say a few words about her. Stacey Robbins is not just a wife, mother, and a storyteller. She also is an integrated wellness coach, speaker, and award winner, author of You're Not Crazy and You're Not Alone, Losing the Victim, Finding Your Sense of Humor, and Learning to Love Yourself Through Hashimoto. With nearly 20 years of experience with Hashimoto's diagnosis, Stacey's situation prompted her to not only uncover the physical dynamics of this condition, but also to dive into the mind-body-spirit connection as well. And she traveled across the country researching information and spoke with many women over the globe. And she found that there were many common challenges that women with Hashimoto faced: issues of self-rejection, guilt, perfectionism, and control, as well as common relationship pattern and common past experiences. And all road pointed towards needing that all-important vitamin, self-love. And this became a very vital part of Stacey's healing journey, and the one that she invites every woman with this autoimmune disease to take as well. As a motivational speaker and coach, she has a way of turning your fear into empowerment. And Stacey, I couldn't think about a better person to really take on this conversation we're starting tonight about sexuality and Hashimoto's. And really, not just Hashimoto, because really anybody that has an autoimmune disorder or not feeling well will find themselves in this conversation. So we wanted to start this, and it's never talked about sexuality in Hashimoto's, and why is that? Why is it that it's a subject that we never hear about? Why is it taboo? So I really want to open the conversation with this question.
You know, there are so many reasons. First of all, I just want to thank you, Fabienne, for what you and Pearl are doing with Hashimoto's Awareness and serving the Hashimoto's community in such, great ways and intensive ways where you're being so supportive. And bringing this conversation to light really is an example of that, because this is one of those things that people don't really talk about very much. And, when you think about, well, what is the reason why we don't talk about it? It could be a variety of reasons. One is because maybe we came from a generation where that wasn't something we really talked about openly. Maybe we came from a generation that says you don't talk about sex, you don't talk about money, and you don't talk about religion. So it may be a generation thing, or it may be a cultural thing where these things are taboo topics. It may be that there's a sense of embarrassment and shame about a part of our life that is supposed to be so vibrant and alive, and now it's not, and it feels like some sense of failure on our part. Or maybe even that there's a sense of hopelessness, like, why bring this up? No one else is able to figure out anything else about my Hashimoto's. Why bring this up? So I think that there are so many different reasons, and I will go into them a little bit more as I share some of my story in this presentation time. And then I'll be so happy to take questions and really bring the conversation to the forefront. How does that sound?
It sounds great, Stacey. Awesome.
Okay. I'm excited to jump in, and I just want to let you know, if you're joining us right now, my name is Stacey Robbins, and I'm so excited to be with Hashimoto's Awareness tonight as they're hosting this topic, Hashimoto's and sex. Well, as Fabienne said, I am an integrated wellness coach, and I'm the author of You're Not Crazy and You're Not Alone, Losing the Victim, Finding Your Sense of Humor, and Learning to Love Yourself Through Hashimoto's. And I have had 20 years experience of really going down the path of not only trying to figure out physiologically what the heck was going on with my body as it went through all of these, alien invasion kind of changes inside of myself. But I also eventually looked at what is the mind-body-spirit connection to this whole thing. I started asking myself, if I have this autoimmune condition where my body is attacking its own thyroid, where am I doing that in other places in my life? So that's the approach that I have about things. So while I do know some of the scientific parts of it, and I've studied for 20 years about the physiological parts, and I've experienced so much of the physiological changes and in one direction or another. Really tonight I'm not going to be talking about the science of it all as much as I'm going to be talking about the mindset and the heart set that we approach this subject of our sexuality with. And I'll start off with telling you my story because I think that's the most comfortably uncomfortable place to begin if you're going to talk about sex, Start with yourself. Okay. So how I got into the whole thing of Hashimoto's was in 1995, my life kind of crashed and burned with a whole lot of events that were, you wouldn't want to happen over the course of a lifetime, and yet they happened within a couple of months of each other. My grandmother, whom I loved, unexpectedly passed away. I was hit in the first of 2 car accidents. My husband and I were separated after 6 years of our young marriage. And then my dad began the process of dying at the young age of 49 from complications to type 1 diabetes. So all of these things were going on, and my body started changing. My skin started freaking out. My hair started falling out, and it was just a mess, And within a year's time, I gained over 100 pounds, and I was told that I was dying. The doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. They just knew that the state of malnourishment I was in while I was almost 300 pounds was something that they couldn't figure out, why my skin was bleeding, why I was so sick, why I had chronic infections all the time. 20 years ago, they couldn't figure this out, told me I was dying. Eventually, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's and PCOS, so polycystic ovarian syndrome, and I was told that if I did live, that I'd never have children without some kind of medical intervention. I know what it's like to go through body changes. Not only did my body look different after gaining 100 pounds, but it acted different, and it felt different, and that included my libido. I was pretty sure that had escaped down the nearest fire exit and was taking a long, unannounced vacation in Aruba without taking me with it. And we know the basics of why our libido gets affected when you have a thyroid condition, because the thyroid malfunctioning affects every cell in your body. It affects every organ in your body. It affects every gland in your body, and that includes your sex glands. So, like I said, today I want to share with you some of my story, not the science of all of it. I have experts I can refer you to, and so can Fabienne and Pearl, experts who can take care of the nuances of the sex hormones. But I want to tell you what happened in my heart and mind and what I went through when my thyroid turned down the heat on everything, including my libido. As women, our sensuality is something that is so deeply tied to our femininity. And when we start getting into all the weird hormone changes, we feel less like a woman. We have hair growing on our chin, over our lip, out of our nipples. We've lost a third of our eyebrows, and cellulite gets taken to new levels of Shar-Pei puppy thighs, and our weight climbs the charts faster than the latest Adele song. It's just crazy what our body goes through with all these changes. Physiologically, our skin becomes like the Sahara Desert, but it doesn't just stop at the skin on our legs. Nothing is feeling very, very excited and ready to go even between our legs either. So with all of these things going on in our body, we don't feel very sexy or sensual. We feel sort of like a female, emotionless, sexless Mr. Spock from Star Trek. And I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, growing up on Disney stories and fairy princesses, it wasn't my dream to look like some bloated version of Mr. Spock when I was a grown-up. There was nothing romantic or beautiful or sensual or desirable about that picture. And yet that is what I felt like. So while our body is feeling nothing but fatigue and pain and is acting like an alien, we start getting triggered emotionally. We feel bad. We feel ugly. We don't even want to look at ourselves, let alone our partner wanting to look at us. We can't imagine if we can't stand the sight of ourselves in the mirror with this body that looks so different than it did before, how could our partner even want to look at us? So we start hiding out. We start wearing the ugly clothes. We start closing down shop like our vagina is going into hibernation for the winter or something. And that's when the whole head game comes into play. We start feeling guilty, ashamed, like we're disappointing and failing our partner and our idea of ourselves as a woman. We're grieving because we've lost a part of ourselves that made us feel young and vibrant, and we feel like we're getting old before our time. We're getting further and further removed from our connection to ourselves and that part of ourselves that used to feel so alive. My story that I'm about to tell you is one that I shared in my book, You're Not Crazy and You're Not Alone. It's very honest, it's very raw, and it has the full permission of my husband to share it. And I can picture him if he were tuning in right now. He's listening going, holy crap, what's she going to say again? Like, what's our story? Oh, no. But no, he has said, feel free. If this is something that can help others, then do that. And really, that's our heart and that's our life. And it's not like I love sharing all my personal business with people, but if it's something that can shortcut you to a healing path or make you feel less crazy and less alone, then it's worth it to share. Our sexuality doesn't start in our bedroom with our life partner or our spouse. It doesn't start in our bedroom when we're married. It starts as a child. So bear with me as I share some of my story because it paints a picture of the storyline that was developing in my life about myself as a woman. And why does that matter? Because that picture that gets painted for us as a child through the impressions that are given to us, through the experiences we have, through the messages that we're sent, is the picture that we eventually hang on the wall in our bedroom when we're an adult. As a child, my sexuality was awakened at a very young age. I was from that generation where the men would keep magazines, pornographic magazines around because it was just part of the culture. It was part of this whole idea that children don't understand and they don't get it anyway, and there was nothing about trying to harm anybody with leaving it around. It was just a lack of consciousness. And so that was surrounding me from the time I was an infant. I began acting out what I saw in those magazines when I was about 5 years old with a little boy in the neighborhood and, continued on that path through much of my youth. By the time I was 12 years old, I had a pretty solid and worked idea of what it was to be a woman, to be a sexual person. And so we moved when I was 12 to a new town during a new season of life, middle school, which are probably some of the hardest, most horrid years when children mistreat each other. It was that time that I moved to a new town and a new school. And the drug dealer of that town started following me around. Now, I never took drugs. I wasn't interested in drugs, but he got interested in me. I was only 12. He was scary, and he kept following me and threatening me. And on Halloween night, after I had gone trick-or-treating with my younger sisters, he climbed into my room and raped me. He did that repeatedly for months. I didn't tell a soul because he had threatened to hurt me and the people I loved if I said anything to anyone. I learned how to be a secret keeper. And what was happening to me was further confirming this warped idea I had about what sex was. I finally reached out after months in desperation to a family member, somebody who was older, someone who I saw as a big brother and I felt like I could trust and would keep me safe. And he lived far enough away that I felt like I wouldn't be risking anybody in my immediate family. When I walked into his bedroom to tell him, this is what's happening to me and I need your help, he turned off the light and he started molesting me. That message got further imprinted in my mind that I wasn't safe, that I wasn't worth protecting. After dealing with a host of reactions in order to try to gain some control with my out-of-control life, this dual life that I was living, the life of the good girl and then the life of this girl who was ruined, the one who was a good sister and protected my younger sisters from harm, and this one who felt like she was just destroyed. In an effort to try to gain some control and numb the pain, I chose things like anorexia, to find some control, over-exercising. I overdrink alcohol as a way to both find control and, like I said, numb the pain. And I almost ended up taking my own life at 13 years old. By 14, I chose a very strict religious lifestyle for a few years as this sort of kickback response. It was crazy. It was some crazy thinking and crazy theology, but it made me feel safe. And it made me feel like I could be clean again. So those were the good things about it. I felt like I had a new start and that I would be okay if I believed in this God this way. And it took away that feeling of essentially feeling ruined by the time I was a teenager. So fast forward to now I'm 18 years old and I start dating this really cute musician, a cute guy named Rocky. He played the saxophone, and he asked me to marry him. I said, look, I have two requirements. That when I get married to someone, that person doesn't have a problem with pornography, and that person is someone who shares my faith, my crazy faith, but I didn't think it was crazy at the time. And so it's kind of an eclectic list, a short list, but very eclectic. Don't have a problem with pornography and share my faith. He looked at me, as he's down on one knee proposing to me when he's, 19 and I'm 18. And he's like, okay, I don't have that problem, and I don't share your faith, but maybe one day I will. But so that one day came, and we were on the same page about our faith, and we got married at 20 and 21 years old. As soon as we got married, we eloped. I gave up the big wedding for different reasons, and I went in, and we eloped, and I ended up in this really deep, dark depression. Soon after we were married, I found out he had a huge problem with pornography. He had never told me. I was in such a profound depression. The feelings of rejection surfaced, of not being good enough, because as skinny as I was at 135 pounds and as cute as I was, I knew I couldn't and wouldn't compete with those images that were in his head. I knew those images. I had had them in my life for the first 13 years of my life, cemented in there. I had lived with them from the time I was a baby. I spent my time overcompensating for those feelings of unworthiness and rejection, where I used religion in my youth. I used being a workaholic in my young adult years. I worked in our music business day and night. We were booked years in advance. We traveled all over the country, and I was just this person who was putting my worth into my work, my performance, my perfectionism, my body, my appearance, what people thought of me, and nobody knew that I was living with this crushing secret, yet again, this crushing secret, that I was living in a marriage where I was wanted but not wanted, safe but not safe, loved but not loved, just like when I was growing up. Around year 5 of our marriage, things fell apart. We were separated, and during that separation, like I said, my grandmother died. I was hit in the first of those 2 car accidents, and my father began dying at 49 years old. So it was the stress of all of it, between the workaholism of working 80, 90 hours a week and the tragedies and the events, that I started getting sick. I felt so overwhelmed and so alone. We'd be going to the doctor's offices, and I didn't feel right, and all of this crazy stuff was going on in my body, one infection after another, cholesterol going through the roof, my vision changing, my sleep changing, feeling exhausted and in pain all the time and anxious. I'd never felt that kind of feeling called anxiety. And so here I was going through all of these changes, and like I said in the beginning, around this time, the doctor said to me, "We're sorry to tell you, but it's time to get your affairs in order because we think you're dying." It was right before that my husband came out of that issue with pornography. So here I am at 26 years old, and he's like 27 years old, and he's like, "Hey, I'm done with that childhood mess that I was in. I'm great. I'm ready to love you, be devoted to you, and be with you as this faithful, connected spouse." And I'm hearing from the doctors, "You're dying." it totally played into that whole Charlie Brown and Lucy theology, philosophy I had about life and love and God, where the minute I get to have the good thing, it's taken away from me. The minute I'm ready to show up and have that good thing, it's being taken away right before my very eyes. So you may wonder at this point, like, why is Stacey telling us all of this stuff when all I want to know really is, like, how do I get my libido back into my bedroom and back from vacation? You know, like, how do I get that back, that interest back in my life? But the reason that I'm sharing all the backstory is this, because Hashimoto's and sex doesn't just have to do with what's going down in the bedroom. It has to do with what's coming up. It has to do with what is rising to the surface. Because if you're in the bedroom, that's a place where your buttons get pushed. If we're feeling vulnerable and unsafe, we bring that into the bedroom. If we feel unworthy of love, we bring that into the bedroom. If we feel rejected in life, we bring that into the bedroom. If we're having a hard time receiving, we bring that into the bedroom. If we have a hard time giving, we bring that into the bedroom. If we deal with perfectionism or performance, we bring that into the bedroom. If we feel like we deserve to be punished and don't deserve to have good things, we bring that into the bedroom. If we feel like a victim, if we're waiting for someone to come rescue us and save us from our circumstances, we bring that into the bedroom. If we're not happy with ourselves or with our life, we bring that into the bedroom. Because ultimately, if we don't truly love ourselves, and sex is one of our expressions of love, commitment, and connection, then we're going to bring all of that story, baggage, that painting into the bedroom. You know, the bedroom is like this big sandbox of our life that reveals how we play, how we interact, how we share, how we enjoy our own space in the midst of others. It really reveals what's been going on behind the scenes. It's just the place that stuff gets revealed. It can also, though, be a place of healing if you will let it be. I share these things so openly, like I said, not because I love people knowing my personal business and what size my panties are and that I was almost 300 pounds or that, you know, my sex life went through some really wonky times and I had this really weird past. These are not things like I bring up at cocktail parties. That's not what's exciting to me. But if you can be sitting wherever you're sitting and listening to this and going, oh my God, that's me. I see me in that story. I hear me in that story. That was part of my life. That's part of the stuff I'm dealing with when I am naked in the bedroom and dealing with this Hashimoto's thing. Like, these things are coming up for me too. And if you feel less crazy and less alone, that's half the healing right there. Because, you know, when we feel like we're in some isolation tank somewhere in Siberia, it compounds the problem, that sense of feeling like we're alone. But so I share this so that you can know that we're all kind of like on this tropical island with lots of people who can relate. And that breathes better, and it feels like relief. And in that state of relief, we can heal. So here's what comes up in that space. When we finally like breathe and sigh and go, yeah, that's me, here's what comes up next. Yeah, but I'm exhausted from Hashimoto's. Yeah, but I'm not feeling it. Like, I have none of that mojo, juju, whatever you want to call it. It's not happening for me. Yeah, but I feel pressured to perform. Yeah, but my spouse doesn't understand. He totally doesn't get it. They don't get what I'm going through, and they just expect me to be the same in the bedroom. And the really big yeah but that most women don't even know how to verbalize, it's the part of them who, you know, these women in our circle of Hashimoto's have had such a high percentage of experience with abuse of some form, verbal, sexual, physical, emotional, that we left our bodies. We left our physical, sexual bodies, and we left those places where things felt good because we had to leave there because things felt so bad. And we went to the only safe place we knew where to go, and that was in our heads. The place where we can anticipate someone else's needs, where we can take our fear and turn it into strategies so we can prevent those pains from the past happening again in the future. That place where worry lives, that place where we can feel like we're being productive if we're working and reworking the numbers or the grocery list or the laundry list or someone else's needs. That place, we left our bodies and we went up into our heads because that's where we felt safe. And it's almost some really strange form of prostitution. And I'm going to use that word, and I want you to hang in there with me for just a moment because that's really inflammatory, and I say that for a reason. Because when we don't feel safe to feel our feelings while we're engaging in sex in our bodies, it's because we haven't yet fully integrated ourselves back into our bodies where we had times of not feeling safe. We haven't yet learned how to reconnect to that part of ourselves that needs to feel whole and safe and a part of the experience of the sexual experience. So that's a whole but that people don't even know to bring to the table until I'm like maybe sitting with them in a coaching session and we're able to get to that place. That they left themselves, they divorced their body. Now, isn't that interesting? Because to have a diagnosis of Hashimoto's means your body's attacking itself. If you're at war, are you going to hang around with the enemy? If your body's at war with itself, are you going to hang around? No, you're going to go to wherever you think is safe. And physiologically, our body does that all the time. Our body reroutes all the time. How do we know that? You take out an appendix, and the body will reroute and know how to detox another way. You take out a kidney, the body reroutes and knows how to use the one kidney with greater efficiency and other ways to use the liver. Like physiologically our body does that. Well, emotionally we do that too. So when we don't feel safe in one place, we'll go to another place within our system just to survive. So that's the really big but. Because when people don't know how to reintegrate with their bodies, they don't know how to honor their body. They don't know how to listen to their body. So someone says, what do you like? They don't know. How does that feel? I don't know. Did you enjoy that? I don't know. Because when you don't know how to be friends with your body, you don't know how to listen to its signals because you don't trust, because that trust got broken. And so many of us have continued victimization of what that original event was and separated ourselves, ignored ourselves, not taken care of ourselves. And so when we don't know how to honor our body with the food that we choose, the rest that we need, the relationships that we're in, with the supplements we're supposed to take that will help us get better, and we come to this point where we realize, I'm not really sure how to honor myself in those ways. And I don't know how to honor myself in the bedroom. I don't know how to know what is safe, what feels good, what I like, and how to be truly vulnerable there, or to be playful there, or to feel safe there. I don't even know how during this time when I truly am sick and I don't feel sexy, that I know how to listen to what would be best for me during this time. I can't tell you how common that is. So that's it. For women who have been abused emotionally, physically, and sexually, for women who have turned off the check engine light and just kept driving their life into the ground with overworking and performance-based relationships and over-attending to other people's needs instead of their own, this is really a common issue. So yes, the Hashimoto's might have chased our libido away, but it's also bringing up some really important things to talk about that are coming up. So as we hit this point in our time together, I want to hear from you about what is the burning question? What is the thing that you're dealing with the mind-body-spirit connection of how the head game is affecting the bedroom game for you? So we can talk about that for a few minutes. What do you think, Fabienne?
Absolutely. I mean, you brought a lot of things up to the surface, and it's really, we need to think about so many things, right? So many issues that comes up for me. And what do we do? How do we approach the question? And it's an investigation, and it's a great place to start to investigate and really explore and ask questions, right? How do I feel about it, and why do I feel about it? And just put all the judgment on the side, and just put all the guilt, and just notice the feelings that come up. It could be guilt, it could be anger, it could be anything. But just start to write about it and just have a conversation with yourself about it, so that you become your own investigator. It's like we were talking this week about, creating a puzzle. And the more you ask questions, the more you have some answer come to you. And without judging them, just write them down and continue to write and write and write. And after a while, it will make sense to read over again, maybe a month after. You will maybe see some patterns coming to the surface. Stacey, go ahead.
I think that's a great idea. I think that writing, I really value stream of consciousness writing, where you sit down with 3 pages a morning or a day or whatever, and you just write what is coming to you. Not what you think will sound good, nothing that you think will look good, but just really like, what's the real deal? What am I really feeling about this particular topic?
Exactly. I like to say just like be curious about this.
Yes.
Like really be curious. And there's no right or wrong.
Be like a detective.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like you have a magnifying glass and you're just looking at it. You're not judging it as good, bad, right, or wrong. You're just going, oh, this is what it is.
Yeah. Yes. Accepting whatever comes to you and write it down and just sit with it, just be with it, and see what comes up for you. Yeah, it's a good. I think
that's a great way to process it. Mm-hmm.
And create also a support team. Like you don't have to do this all by yourself. There are, Stacey's a coach, I'm a coach. You don't want to. You can do a lot by yourself. You can use media and drawings and painting, but you can also create a really strong support team to help you to get a breakthrough.
Yes, and very often it doesn't even take a long time. The people who I work with, there's so much that can happen in just a really short period of time where you come with the intention of healing and freedom and being honest and authentic. And in that space, you really can find your highest self and start looking at your life. And when you change that pair of glasses, the lenses that you're looking at your life through, you're able to, move forward in a different way, in a healing way, in a more empowered way, where you go, that's something that happened to me, but that's not who I am. And when we can come to the place where we see the things that happen to us in life as an event and not an identity, we're able to really be more whole. We're able to live in the wholeness that we have.
Right, yes. Because then you're watching it like it happened to something outside of yourself. You become like an observer, right? You become the observer of the little girl or the younger girl that experienced, whatever it is, that sexual abuse or verbal abuse or anything that happened. Because too many of us have very similar stories.
Right.
And brings me to a question. I know that you did a little survey today that you posted on Facebook. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yes. Let me just update it because we had so many people jump in. This is awesome. Oh, my gosh. We had more people jump in than I can even see right now. Okay, so to share with you some of the results, one of the questions I asked was, do you feel that having Hashimoto's has decreased your libido or interest in sex? 92% said yes, and a very small 8% said no, they don't feel like it had. So 92% said yes, I feel like this has affected me. And then I asked, what is the greatest factor that has contributed to a decreased libido? And I asked these questions: my lack of energy, being in pain or not feeling well in my body. So many people with Hashimoto's, we get aches and pains and joint pain, and you feel that, discomfort. That was the second option. Not feeling good about the way I look. My body's changed. I've gained weight from Hashimoto's. Oh, I don't want to have sex because, I don't feel like I look good anymore. Or relationship issues with your spouse or partner. So the overwhelming at almost 50% was lack of energy. And so those three reasons, lack of energy, being in pain, and not feeling good in myself, accounted for over 85% of the answers. And, some people said, I have no desire due to pain and exhaustion. Someone else said migraines. Another answer was because of low testosterone, low estrogen and progesterone. Zero interest in sex. No libido. I'm just never in the mood for sex. I really love sex when I'm in the mood, but there's just no being in the mood, lack of desire. Feeling emotionally numb and irritable. Feeling indifferent to life in general. I mean, these were great answers, Fabienne, to that question. What are the factors that make you not interested? Mm-hmm. And people say, way down on the list was low thyroid levels. So people are recognizing that they're not vibing it. And, and for many of us, not having your thyroid levels balanced is a huge contributor because, when I got some of my levels balanced, it was like parts of me woke up that had been sleeping for a long time. I couldn't believe this when I went on a raw food diet, and I'm not telling people to go on a raw food diet, and I'm not telling you not to. I'm just sharing my experience. When I ended up doing a raw food, I added more raw foods to my diet over the course of a year. I really felt inclined to do that. Just my body was calling to that. So I added like 5% more raw food to my diet, my meat and other vegetables, for like 5% a month for about 6 months. And then around the 6-month mark, I did like a whole raw food diet for 1 month, and then I was craving salmon, so I ate like salmon throughout part of it. I couldn't believe two things. I ended up saying the F word a lot. I think because a lot of my raw emotions were coming out when I ate raw food, but the other thing was that, oh my gosh, I got my libido back. I think my libido needed some more vegetables, raw vegetables, So different things can help you feel balanced. I'm not saying it's only the mind game. Food can help. Your meds being right can help. Your supplements and minerals being balanced can totally help. I'm the person who shines the flashlight on the mind, body, spirit part. Then this was overwhelming, Fabienne. Get this. I asked in the survey, in my childhood, I experienced the following: sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse. It was overwhelming, the amount of people who had experienced sexual abuse. 75% have experienced sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse.
Yes, it's very
in
interesting.
their growing up time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And, I really want to honor also, we have Joseph, here with us, and as a man. And Joseph, if you want to share anything, you don't have to, but we'd really also love to hear, because you're on the other side of this, if you want to share anything that would serve the audience. And I think, Stacey, if you want to share one more thing about the survey, go ahead, but I think it's time to open the line for the question also. What do you think? Anything else to share about the survey?
I did ask this question, and I thought because I have heard this so much in 20 years of counseling women with this, I put the question, I feel unsafe in life. It's hard for me to trust. And, there was a high percentage of people who said yes, or yes, I trust and I don't trust. That was about 40% of people were like, can I deal with that? Right.
And and what do we do with that? Mm-hmm. How do we trust again? Mm-hmm. But to be able to say and to acknowledge and sit with it and say, you know what, I don't feel safe right now. That's big. Mm-hmm. Just huge. Just that. Mm-hmm. And to be able to name it to your partner, that will transform your relationship. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, Joe, do you want to open the line for questions?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Stacey. I'm going to put the phones all in Q&A mode now.
And Fabienne, while people are raising their hand and deciding what question they want to ask, I'll just say this too. When I asked what you felt like could help support you in your interest in having, what would help you in getting your interest in sex back or your libido, if but so many people said, if I felt better, if I could lose some weight, if I got support from my spouse, if I took care of my needs, I think that would make me feel more sexual and sensual. The answers have been so fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to read some of the answers?
Sure. So people, somebody said, like here, I had 75 responses on this question alone. An example is I turned 50 on my 30th wedding anniversary, and I asked for tickets to a Broadway show. My husband got them. When people asked how those events were for me, he would go on to say how he bought them for me and how much they cost, etc. I was dumbfounded. It took 30 years of marriage and turning 50 to even be asked what I wanted. To me, it was so obvious that something I like to do, we never did. He didn't have a connection to that. And, some of the things that I wanted to share, like she's saying, if he were more connected to the things I liked, then that would make me feel more sexually interested. Well, this is what I want to tell so many of us who have dealt with Hashimoto's. We tend to think that other people can read our minds and that we've really communicated clearly. But for some reason, the desires we have haven't always gotten expressed in either the clearest way or haven't been received in a clear way. So maybe we said it clearly, but that person didn't land there for them. And so we need to find other creative ways to say what it is that we want and need. Or we just need to say it, period. And that is something so important in the bedroom, is that when we are in that situation of reconnecting physically, to communicate. The thyroid is it's right at our voice box. It's right around our voice box. So many people who went through the emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, who went through something hard, whiplash, had a sports injury, in those areas, they felt like their communication was thwarted. So the bedroom is that place of application, of trying out, saying, this is what I want. And so, but you can understand, like I talked about, when you're feeling conflicted and not really knowing what you want, you don't know how to say that. And we can sometimes expect people to just know or just figure it out. But what we need to learn and grow in is to say what we want and need, right?
Yes, I love this conversation, and it just reminds me of a little exercise that I've learned years ago with Margot Arnold. I was studying Tantra at the time and assisting her actually at Omega. And one of the little exercises that she was teaching people, and she has that in her book also, is very simple. You have like the couple sitting in front of each other and starting to learn how to dialogue and have a conversation about themselves. And it's very simple. You could just have 4 questions, and you'll start with, my desires are, and you'll have you can measure the time. You just say you have 5 minutes each, and so one person starts to talk about, my desires are da-da-da-da. And then you say, my fears about it are this. And then my expectations about it, are this. And the potential really that there is about it is this. And so it would take them, 5 minutes or whatever time you decide, but you have to agree on it. And then the other person just listens and doesn't give any explanation or judgment, nothing, just be a beautiful listener. And then you exchange, and the other person goes, my desire, my fears, my expectations, and my potential. And that starts to open a conversation about, feeling safe with your partner and be able to talk about just anything without, in a way that you won't have any judgment coming back at you, because that's an agreement that you have between the two of you.
I love those listener speaker methods where you can, because it's so hard. I shouldn't say it's so hard. It's just interesting to learn how to communicate in healthy ways when you're, past the childhood age, when you normally would have learned healthy communication then. To learn it when you're a grown-up, it's sort of like emotionally learning how to be potty trained. It's just like, wow, it feels a little awkward. I should have known this already, and it feels a little strange to have guided sentences sometimes for people. It feels like they're being forced. It feels forced to say, my desire is But you know what? I've done that. When I had to reconnect with my sense of communication, Rocky and I did the speaker-listener method where we held a tile in our hands, and whoever had the tile had the floor and had to say like a couple of sentences, all I statements, not you statements, and then you pass the tile to that other person, and they got to respond specifically to what you said. You know, so it's a great way to.
Yes, and it's like everything you learn. It's like a new muscle, and you go to the gym and you have to work out these new muscles, and it just feels awkward, and it's okay.
Yes,
it's okay.
It is okay.
A practice, right? You start, and it really opens up to safety. It creates it's so good to be able to be received and to be heard, right? Sometimes that's all we need, especially as women, just to be heard. We don't need anybody to fix us or to try to make us more happy. We just want to be heard, and it makes miracles.
Yes, just to be understood, and heard.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we don't have any questions still?
We don't have any questions at this time. Again, just a reminder, it's *6 to ask a question on your phone.
And that's okay. I know these are tender topics, and we didn't go into the whole, how do you balance your hormones? Those would be safe questions to ask. It's very vulnerable, and I trust that the women and men who are out there listening to this are sitting with some deep processing and have, some valuable introspection going on. I will throw some things your way to add to your exploration of it. When people say to me, well, what do I do? What do I do in the meantime? Because so often we want to wait until we're through a situation, before we do something. Like I want to wait till I'm skinny to be, wear cute clothes, or I want to wait until my thyroid's balanced before I eat well. Or, we have all these little strange rules and conditions. But here's my thing. Even the weight you're at, the shape you're in, the situation that you have, these are some of my thoughts. And these are some of the things that I did and I took on for myself. I say have sex anyway. It may take you longer to arrive at your destination of pleasure, but at least you're going there, And so there's something about that, just staying engaged. And I was just like, if I'm going to feel shitty, I might as well have sex anyway. If I'm going to be tired, I might as well at least, engage that part of me that, feels like me. Even if nothing really feels like me right now, I may as well still do good things. I stopped waiting. I stopped waiting for things to all be perfect and my thighs to be smaller. Be playful. The bedroom is really a hard place to be a perfectionist, and it doesn't serve anyone to be a perfectionist in the bedroom. Be playful. No one has to perform. No one has to be perfect.
Exactly. You're bringing a great question because, yes, it could be a game. It could be a game. It doesn't have to be something serious. Yes, you have a question? Go ahead.
I have a caller.
Hi, Stacey. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for jumping in. What's your question?
Yeah, no problem. So you've been talking a lot about different types of abuse, and you mentioned something about eating disorders in your past. And for me, as I was listening to your talk, I was thinking about if there were any times where I ever struggled with abuse, and I never really have with other people, but I too suffered from anorexia when I was 16. And so I feel like a lot of that abuse was coming from myself versus someone else. And so I just was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to how anorexia or self-induced abuse might come into this whole mind game and affect our sexuality. If you could just speak to that a little bit more.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for such an honest question, because that whole thing about anorexia, controlling our foods, is really about trying to find some sense of control. And for many people, it's about that. It's like, I don't feel safe in what's going on around me. So I'm going to create conditions within which I can control what I put in my mouth, and I can be this strict disciplinarian, this mini dictator. I can control the results. I mean, I remember when I used to eat a box of laxatives, and I would not leave the bathroom until I had lost at least a pound. I mean, I would lock myself in the bathroom and sit on the floor and then sit on the toilet. You know, like that whole thing of just being able to control your environment when something felt out of control. Now think about how that would be connected to a sexual experience. To have an orgasm is like this out of control feeling. It's this out of control experience. So, you know, the part of us that is fighting to have some semblance of control, that can get really triggered by a place where feelings and emotions are maybe, you know, beyond your ability to contain them. And so that's a thought to consider or to journal about, like, how is that connected? And that whole idea of self-abuse, I think that's really enlightened, because ultimately, whenever we take on an event as our identity, in your case, you say you weren't abused by anybody else, but that you abused yourself. Anytime we perpetuate something that's not loving to ourselves, really, that's our place where we need to go get into a healing mode, and really that's when we've become our own victim. And so when we have that Hashimoto's, where our body's attacking itself, it totally makes sense. We have one part of us that's going into attack mode against itself, and the other part that's being a victim to it. You know, the thyroid's a victim of the autoimmune system that's attacking it and misfiring. So I just think that our life is playing out emotionally, mentally, and physically.
Thank you so much. I love how you compared the control with an eating disorder or something to the bedroom. I had never really thought about it that way, and I think that's a really great comparison, something that I'm going to think about a lot. So thank you so much.
Yeah, maybe you can think of, oh, you're so welcome. And maybe there's something you can think about that where maybe it was just even, you know, it might not have been that anything bad or wrong was going on around you. It could have been just developmentally. Your body was going through hormonal changes, and you get to that place in our hormonal development where we feel part woman, part girl. We're not sure if we want to put on lipstick or put Barbie clothes on Barbie. You know, like we're in that in-between place. That could have been the very thing that triggered you feeling out of control within yourself. You know, so
yeah.
Even a teenager's brain, you know, children only think one thought at a time, have one feeling at a time. Little children only feel sad, and then they feel happy, and then they feel sad, and then they feel happy, and then they're hungry. You know what I mean? But once your brain changes, when you become a teenager, developmentally, you're able to feel more than one emotion at once. And it can be it can really throw us off. And that might have been the thing. You know, I don't know what it is for you, but I love that you're willing to explore it. Good for you for being so insightful.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Like we said, you know, it's a very tender subject and vulnerable. And if you have a question tomorrow that comes to you, please stay in contact with us. Just write it down on Hashimoto'sAwareness.org website, and we will answer to you. And we'll be with Stacey. We'll stay in contact, and we will continue this conversation because this is just the beginning.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to let everyone know that Stacey has a 30-day online coaching experience to take your Hashimoto's healing to the next level. And 40% of all sales during the week of December 2nd to December 9th will go directly to support Hashimoto's awareness. And a word about Hashimoto's awareness is that we are a nonprofit organization, and we rely entirely on the donations of our supporters. So if you'd like to support our cause, please visit our website at hashimoto'sawareness.org and click on the Donate heart in the upper right-hand corner. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Joe. And we will continue this conversation. I so love to have you, Stacey. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, everyone. And we will stay in touch.
Thank you.
And to next month, a big hug to everybody. And have a fabulous holiday season.
Thank you.
Bye.